Pickett, I'd like to talk about the living arrangements. In particular, you're going out to the woods in the months prior to May 10th. I think you indicated that in April you'd gone out to the woods due to a conflict with your mom.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that conflict that led you to go out to the woods?
It's just another argument, just not getting along. It's been the same conflict that her and Ernie been creating for years. They came back and, she kicked Ernie out because I found proof, but maybe there was, what do you call resent? Maybe there was still resent, there was still tension, there were still problems, and we just...
You had enough, so you decided, I'm going to move out for a little bit.
No, I didn't have enough. We got into an argument. And instead of the argument getting worse, instead of getting worse, I decided to be the better person and leave and get away from the situation.
Okay. And what resolved that conflict? Just the passage of time and you came back and everything was okay?
No, the only reason why I came back was to check on Chico. And the first time I went out to the woods, the first few times, I brought Chico with me.
Okay. The first few times you went out to the woods. How many times did you go out to the woods, Mr. Pickett?
Between the end of April 20th, around April 20th, was probably around the first time.
First time ever that you'd gone out to the woods to live like that?
Yeah, I've been out to the woods before, but yes, in Avoca, yes.
First time you've gone out because of a conflict with your mom?
Yes.
And then you came back around the beginning of May, is that right?
After about, the first time I went out there because of the argument around April 20th, and then after 4 or 5 days, I went back to the trailer because me and Chico were very cold. I was running out of food, and it was kind of senseless for me to be out there because all these problems that were created didn't really have nothing to do with me. It was because Ernie didn't like me, and he was trying to turn me against my mom, so it was like there's no reason to fight, there's no reason to argue. I shouldn't be out in the woods.
Well, was Ernie there at the time that you left in April?
No, he never came back. My mom told him to never come back.
So Ernie wasn't there in April, but you still needed to go out in the woods to get away from him?
From my mom, not Ernie.
Okay. Because Ernie was playing mind games through your mom, is that right?
No, because the conflict that Ernie created with my mom for years.
Okay. How many years did this go back?
Back to when I was 18 and a half years old.
Okay. And you took Chico with you for that April visit to the woods? Yes,
for about 4 days.
It was colder in April than in May when you went back out to the woods again?
Very much so. I woke up one morning with Chico and I could not feel my feet.
And you returned to the home then, beginning of May, you went back to the woods for a second time. Was that another conflict that led to that?
Yes, just was not getting along.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that second conflict that took you out to the woods in May?
I knew stuff was reaching a boiling point. There was tension. I just did not want to be around her. I was not comfortable being around her. She was acting very strange, very odd. She was not herself. Maybe we were isolated. We didn't have no transportation. We were an hour away from any small town or city.
When Ernie and your mom left back in January, if I understand it, they left kind of middle of the night, or you woke up and they were gone?
Yes, they were gone. I think there might have been a piece of paper on the table or something that, that said they went to Iowa.
And did you know where they went to at that time?
His daughter's house.
Did you maintain contact with your mom while they were gone?
No, I did not.
Did you know when they were coming back?
No, I did not.
So a little bit of the defendant's temper coming in there, I think. Let me bring in my guests, still with me, criminal defense attorneys Franz Borghart and Matthew Mangino. Franz, I'll start with you. As I mentioned, you could see little bits of his temper coming out, although He's being asked a lot of open-ended questions here. Your thoughts so far on the cross-examination?
Well, as you know, Michael, I like a controlled cross-examination. He needs to lead. But that being said, the prosecution is winning because the defendant is losing his temper and getting angry. And this is an anger and a passion that we didn't see when he was talking about defending himself against his mother. And let's be frank, he was pretty much emotionlessness. He was free of emotion on the direct examination. So, yeah. Good job on the prosecution's point of listening, and it's only going to get worse the more he goes into it.
Matthew, I wonder if this is a tactic. I mean, one thing I've noticed about these attorneys is that they're pretty much low-key, and they're going at this, and maybe it's Avoca, it's a small town, so maybe that has something to do with it, but maybe it's a tactic of his to say, okay, I'm going to let this guy talk and have his say, and maybe I can get him to lose his temper.
All right. I mean, I think the approach is sound in that they're not going after him. You know, it's as you said, it's very low key. They're not attacking him, which I think would be a mistake. And while I agree that cross-examination should be tight, normally leading questions, you want to be the person, the attorney wants to be the person who's actually testifying just by getting short, brief answers from the witness. But in this case, I would let him ramble a little bit, because the more he talks, the more he's going to make things more difficult for him. His rambling, which I think they want to promote, is really going to show inconsistencies in his stories, the unbelievable nature of what he's testifying to. So yeah, I think it is a strategy in this case to let him talk a little more than you would normally want on cross-examination.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think he's just going to keep digging himself his own grave. And Franz, finally, with all the little parts of this case, I'm wondering if there might have been a better way to go here rather than self-defense and try to get off completely, and maybe go for something like a heat of passion type murder, maybe to get lesser than a first-degree murder charge, rather than go for the whole enchilada with a self-defense.
So to be sure, tactically, they could have said, look, he snapped. He was starving, he had been on drugs, and he snapped. That would have been an approach, and that certainly would have aligned more with the comment about being possessed by evil. They're all in. To quote the gamblers, they're all in with the self-defense, and then it becomes a not a whodunit. So it's risky. Sometimes it works.
This time, I'm not so sure, guys. I'm not sure it's going to work. But again, you never know what a jury's going to do, you know? So you have to really wait and see. Well, Franz Borghart and Matthew Mangino, thank you so much for being with me this evening. Truly appreciate your legal analysis. In our next hour, we're going to continue our coverage of the Possessed by Evil murder trial and Sean Pickett's cross-examination. So keep it right here on your front row seat to justice.
719855.
Was Sean invited to go with you when you and Susan moved?
No.
Did Susan plan to sell the home in Avoca?
Yes.
He indicated that he was very upset and he felt abandoned by her.
She was coming at me with a knife, just instinctively grabbed the metal bar. She didn't stop, and I swung the metal bar.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Today was day 2 of testimony in the Possessed by Evil murder trial. In small-town Wisconsin, Sean Pickett is accused of murdering his mother, Susan, and the family dog, Chico. Pickett first told police he stabbed them because he was possessed by evil and needed to kill them in order to be set free. But his defense team scrapped that claim, and at trial told this jury that Pickett acted in self-defense, that he walked in on his mom stabbing the dog, and then she turned on him. And yesterday, during their opening statements, they revealed that the defendant is planning to take the stand to tell his story. Now, this morning, the jury heard compelling witness testimony from the victim's boyfriend, Ernest Wheeler. He testified that he saw the defendant become physically violent with his mom several times without much provocation. But now that promise by the defense came true. This afternoon, Sean Pickett took the stand. He's on the stand now, having already told his story on direct, and now he's facing cross-examination. So let's get back into court.
back? When they came back, was that a surprise to you too?
It was a surprise because when they came back, I was sleeping and Ernie woke me up.
And when would that have been?
They left in January and they were gone for 3.5 months, almost 4 months. So March, January, February, so they probably came back around the end of March, like March 20th to March 30th.
And that was the time that you confronted Ernie about his sex offender history?
Yes, and I showed it to my mom, and she told him to leave. She kicked him out.
When did you find those papers, Mr. Pickett?
About 2 weeks before they came back.
And you heard Mr. Wheeler testify earlier today that Susan knew about that before?
No. I've been trying to warn her for years. He's a weirdo. I told her I've been around child molesters before. They're perverts. They're weird. I knew there was something wrong with the guy. I had an inkling that he was a sex offender. I tried to warn her for years. She never wanted to listen to me.
So you were looking for documentation that would support your
No, I was
theory.
not looking for documentation. I just came across it.
And where did you come across that? In Ernie's belongings that were left at the house?
Yes.
Do you normally go through Ernie's belongings when he's not there?
No, I do not.
So why did you on that occasion?
To be honest, I really don't know. It was almost like instinct. I was by a file cabinet. I was bored, and someone told me to go through it, and I found documentation that he was on the sex offender list, and his daughter, who was in the foster home at the time, confessing to the people on the documents that he touched her inappropriately.
And you had that inkling about him for years?
Yeah, you just knew something was wrong with the guy, that something just wasn't right with him.
And you told your mom that repeatedly?
Yes, my mom, my dad, yes, for a very long time. My dad and all of his friends, they all said the same thing. He's a weirdo.
And yet your mom still stood by Ernie and moved to Iowa with him?
Yes, because he would tell her, I'm not doing anything, I love you. It wasn't a move to Iowa. They went down there to try and find jobs like they did before. And just like before, it never worked out. And I knew and told my mom that it wasn't going to work out this time too. And it didn't.
Did it bother you that she went with Ernie even though you'd been warning her for years?
No. It didn't bother me. It was just they left me there stranded. I didn't have no money at the time. All the bills were overdue by at least $1,000. It was winter time, and I was worried about surviving. Is the heat going to get turned off? Is the electricity going to get turned off? No food. It's like, what the heck?
So you're more upset about being left on your own than anything at that point?
Well, they just kind of left me to rot pretty much. It's just like, don't make sense.
How far away is this camp that you had in the woods from your house?
Probably 20-30-minute walk. We were where we were living was on one edge of the town. The campsite was all the way on the other side of the town going towards the Lone Rock.
This campsite, is it public land, private land? How did you wind up at this particular campsite?
To be honest, I don't. I wound up at that campsite. It really wasn't a campsite. I brought a tent there and I put it up against the tree. I was just walking. It just looked like a good area to camp.
And how long were you out in the woods in the beginning of May?
Maybe a few days. I went out to the woods in May because I caught my mom raping my dog.
What was that?
I caught my mom raping my dog.
And when would that have been?
around May 1st or 2nd.
Had that happened before?
Yes. About 2 years ago, I caught her molesting his scrotum.
Did you contact the Humane Society or law enforcement about that?
No, I did not, because if I contact law enforcement, what are they going to do? Are they going to believe me? No, they always think I'm the bad guy.
So when you went out in the woods in May, it was because of what you saw your mom doing to your dog, but you didn't take Chico with you that time?
No, I did not, because when I did previously, I couldn't even let him off the leash. I couldn't really bring no food with me for him. It was pretty much hard to take care of him out in the woods.
But you had been with him for 4 or 5 days in April out in the woods, correct?
Yes, and then it didn't work out because he was so cold, I couldn't let him off the leash. It was hard to take care of myself out there, let alone him. And he pretty much probably almost freeze before I would.
Getting up to May 10th, but what time did you come back to the home that day?
I came back 2 times. One in the afternoon and then later on in the day.
And the first time you came back, I understand, was to let Chico out?
Yes, to check, let him out and make sure he was okay. Make sure he had food and stuff.
And then he went back out to the woods for a few more hours before coming back to check on Chico?
Yes.
And when Mr. Gilbertson stopped by, was that between the times you were out in the woods, or when was that?
That was the first time I came back that day before the incident happened.
Okay. And I think you testified earlier in your testimony that there was weird stuff going on around noon when Mr. Gilbertson was there?
And not just weird stuff, but in general, there's like the conflict that's been going on. My mom acting weird, her acting funny. You know, it just seemed very odd for him to show up. I wasn't trying to hang out.
So some of the same conflict you were talking about earlier in April and May, kind of the same ongoing things with Ernie?
While she was in creating those problems with Ernie, yes. They seemed to drag on. It didn't seem like she wanted to, it was still having an effect. It seemed like she was still on the same problems that, like when Ernie was around, it's just he wasn't around. Almost if she resented me for the problems that happened with Ernie.
So you think that she resented you for the issues that she had with Ernie? Would that be because of the documents that you found, you think?
It's a possibility, yes.
Now, when you came back into the house that afternoon of May 10th, the second time, so that's, you were coming back in to check on Chico again?
Yeah, later on in the day, yes.
And I think you indicated that your room looked like it had been scrambled. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
The futon that was normally up against the wall, it was in the middle of the room. It looked like it looked like someone ransacked it, almost like someone searched it or something.
And you heard a commotion in the room next door, is that right?
Yes.
What kind of commotion did you hear? Can you describe that a little bit more for me?
almost like a there's a commotion, almost like if you heard someone wrestling in a room or something.
Did you hear your mom saying anything?
No.
Did you hear your dog barking at all?
No.
And then you fast walked into the room. Is that my understanding?
As I opened the door, it was slowly, but as I seen what's going on, I kind of quick stepped into the room, yes.
Did you close the door behind you?
Not on purpose, but instinctively, yes.
So you walked into a room where you heard this commotion going on and closed the door behind you?
Pretty much. You're like, what's going? Like, hey, what are you doing? And then just like, just shut. No, not on purpose.
All right, if I didn't know any better, I would think this was direct examination. But anyway, we're getting to the story. We're going to hit the pause button. We'll come back, continue with our coverage of the possessed by evil murder trial and the cross-examination of Sean Pickett. So keep it right here on your front row seat to justice.
Only at Fabletics.com.
Examination. And where we left off and hit the pause button was where the prosecuting attorney is beginning to take him through the story of how he confronted his mom that day. He talked about opening the door, hearing a commotion, opening the door, seeing his mom stabbing the dog. So let's get back into the courtroom for more of his cross-examination.
Pickett, I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 17. That was an exhibit that was previously marked during the testimony of Mr. Ertl from the crime lab. Do you recall that testimony?
I do not.
Okay. He was the individual from the crime lab who we introduced the photos of the scene through, and we'd marked one of his exhibits was the diagram of your house. Looking at exhibit number 17, does that diagram accurately reflect the layout of your house?
Yes, it does.
And the SW or southwest bedroom, that would have been your mom's bedroom?
Yes.
And the southeast bedroom adjacent to it, that would have been your bedroom?
Yeah.
And then you could go through the closets from one bedroom to the other, correct?
Yes.
And when you entered that room, I guess if I can approach and give you a pen, a red pen and a blue pen. Can you put an X in the southwest bedroom with the red pen where Chico was located when you walked into that room? And then can you also put a blue X where your mom was located when you walked into the room? Just take a peek at that. And on the exhibit, you indicated that with the red X that Chico was towards the west wall in front of the desk, correct?
Yes.
And then your mom was located to the east of him, closer to the doorway, standing next to Chico? or next to Chico, located next to Chico?
No, she was right on top of him.
She's right on top of him. Okay. Just a moment here. Searching for a photo here that might help the jury better understand where they were located. Mr. Pickett, you recall going through some of the photos of the scene with Mr. Ertl?
Yes.
I'm going to bring up image number 204. From exhibit number 2. And if you could take that, is there a pointer there, Mr. Pickett? No. Could you point for me in image 204 of exhibit number 2 where Chico was located when you first came into the room?
Directly where he's at right now.
Okay. And your mom was directly over him?
Yes.
Okay. And what position was Chico in when you came into the room? Was he lying aside on his back?
Pretty much on. She was kind of like holding with one arm, and then one arm was kind of like holding him down. So he was. I mean, it happens so fast. It was pretty much. He was on his back, or you could almost say halfway tilted, almost maybe.
And then she came at you with the knife she was holding.
Yes.
Just to confirm, I'll show you what was previously marked as image 447 of exhibit number 2. Is that the knife that she came at you with?
Correct.
Okay. And when you went in and saw your mom standing over Chico, did you see her actively stabbing him at that time?
Yes, she was stabbing him. She was kind of kneeling over. She wasn't standing, she was kneeling over, stabbing him, yes.
So she was on her knees. Was she on her right knee, her left knee, both knees?
Maybe both, maybe one, I'm not sure.
Not sure. Was Chico bleeding at the time?
I don't know. There was blood there already, so.
There was blood there already?
Yes.
All right, we do have to hit the pause button and take a break. He's explaining there how he's walked in and saw his mom over the dog, stabbing her. Quick note, though, you may notice a red light on the side of his face and projecting onto the wall. That is an exit sign that is projecting that light. It has nothing to do with the video or anything that we're doing. As you can see there, that's just coming from an exit sign. Just wanted to let you know that. We'll take a break, get you right back in the court when we come back. Keep it right here on Court TV.
2049 now.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Today was day 2 of the trial against the small-town Wisconsin man accused of killing his own mother and the family dog. Now, the defense team claims the stabbing by 21-year-old Sean Pickett was in self-defense and that his mom stabbed the dog and then turned on Pickett. But the prosecution says Pickett intentionally killed his mom, continuing a pattern of abuse of his mother. Was Pickett protecting himself and his dog, or is he a cold-blooded murderer? That's the question for this juror. Before I take you back into the courtroom, let me bring back in my guest. I got to get her thoughts here. Criminal defense attorney Sarah Schmeiser is joining me. And Sarah, I said earlier that if I closed my eyes and didn't know where we were, I think this was a direct examination. I'd love to get your thoughts on what we're seeing as far as cross is concerned right now.
Yeah, the cross seems really open-ended, really slow. The trial has moved quickly, so it just almost feels like perhaps the prosecutor wasn't quite ready, wasn't on point for this. And it feels like there's a lot of shocking things that are being said, and then there's a pause, and it's not asked about, so it's really downplayed. He has said some things that just seem incredible, and
outrageous.
I'm wondering what's going to happen with that.
You know what I was thinking, and your point is really well taken. I thought to myself, I said, yeah, I agree 100%. You'd hear something crazy, there'd be a pause. But then I said to myself, you know what? This is probably the first time, when he took the stand earlier today, this was probably the first time he heard the story, right? Because this was not the story he gave police. There weren't any statements to work from, and no real thought as to what this guy was going to say. So he had to take notes and basically start working from those notes right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's hard. That's hard to do when you are not expecting, and there's stuff out of left field. You don't know, do I leave that alone or do I follow up on it? That's a hard decision sometimes.
All right, so now we have the story. He's beginning to tell the story. He's taking him through it. So I want to take folks back into the courtroom now. Again, Sean Pickett on the stand. This is cross-examination. And just when we left off, we're picking it right up where we left off, folks. He was telling the story. He walked into the room and saw his mother over Chico, the family dog. Really, it was a dog that he took care of, a dog he supposedly cared about, and she was stabbing him. So let's get back into the courtroom.
And at that point, could have left the room and called 911 then?
Probably not. No. Because I came into the room. She came at me with the knife. If I went towards the door, she would have stabbed me, and I wouldn't be alive here in court now.
So instead of trying to get help, you decided to try and wrestle the knife away from your mom.
As she was trying to stab me, I did that to defend myself. She came at me with the knife, and I stopped her from trying to stab me. I tried to grab, I stopped her to defend myself.
And your mom's right-handed or left-handed?
I believe she's right-handed.
And did she have the knife in her right hand or her left hand when she was stabbing Chico?
When she was coming at me, it was on the right side, so it would be right hand. Yeah, right.
So she had the knife in her right hand the entire time?
As she was coming at me, yes. Yeah.
How was she holding the knife when she came at you?
I think like you would a regular knife. I'm not too sure.
Underhanded, overhanded, was it?
I didn't know, so I know that the knife was in her hand and she was coming at me. I didn't have time to stop and look and see if the knife was upside down.
But you did have time to yell, "Hey, what are you doing?"
As I walked in the door, of course. Because she was still stabbing Chico. She wasn't coming at me yet.
And I think you testified that you naturally got a hold of it and naturally stabbed her 2 times?
As we were wrestling, I got it out of her hand, and we were still wrestling, and we were wrestling pretty much. I got it from her one time, and we were still fighting over it, and I instinctively stabbed her 2 times, or about 2 times, I think, yes.
Once in the back?
I don't know. It was, I don't really know. I wasn't trying to stab her anywhere. It was just like a quick stab, pretty much.
And at that point, you were still closer to the door than she was, correct?
No, not necessarily. We kind of moved towards where Chica was at, and then we kind of moved to the left a little bit towards the mattress.
You said you somewhat got the knife away from her. How did you somewhat get the knife away from her?
I just got it out of her hand. Somehow I got it out of her hand, yes.
Out of her hand and into your hand?
Yes.
And at what point did you stab her in the throat, Mr. Pickett?
I do not know. It was as we were wrestling, like I defensively, instinctively, just natural instinct when you're being attacked, I just naturally stabbed her in the back. One time it might have been in the throat. It didn't even faze her. She was still coming at me. It didn't stop her or anything.
And that's when you grabbed the metal bar on the dresser?
No. She almost got control of the knife again, and we tripped. She fell over the mattress. The knife fell on the floor somewhere, and instinctively, I ran towards the door.
You ran towards the door, but instead of going out the door, you grabbed the metal bar that was on the dresser? Is that what happened?
No, as I was going towards the door, I went to open the door, like so, and then out of the corner of my eye, I naturally seen something coming. I looked, seen that she was coming at me with the knife again, and the nearest thing next to me, which was right here, was a metal bar. So I grabbed it, said something like, hey, or something, I don't, and I naturally defensively swung the bar.
And that caused her to fall down a little bit, or pretty much?
Yes.
It's a pretty heavy bar, right?
Yes.
Where did you hit her that first time?
I wasn't aiming, I just swung it. I think it hit her in the head, or maybe, in the head, maybe.
Did you put up her arms to try and stop it from hitting her?
No.
So just hit her square in the head with that metal bar the first time?
That's where it might have hit her, yes. I seen in the pictures that her arm was broken, so I might have hit her in the arm one time, too. Or maybe that's where I hit her the first time. I don't know.
Did she end up on the ground at some point then?
Yes.
And you kept hitting her?
She was still getting up. She was still holding on to the knife. She wasn't unconscious or not moving. She was still moving with the knife. And in a life or death situation, the brain's naturally trying to defend itself, so instinctively, yes, I swung the metal bar 2 or 3 more times, and yes.
Where were you standing when you swung that bar 2 or 3 more times?
Right in front of the door.
You were right in front of the door?
Yes.
And just going back to let's see if I can find a good image. And she was down on the ground at this time, right?
What time is that?
When he swung this bar 2 or 3 more times.
Yes.
And you were standing in front of the door.
Yes. It happened right in front of the door, yes.
And showing you what was previously marked as image number 189 of exhibit number 2. So you would have been standing near her where her feet are positioned at the time you struck her those 2 or 3 additional times?
She was kind of kneeling, She was kind of still sitting upwards a little bit, not really kneeling, but she was still upwards. She wasn't on her back like that the second or third time. Maybe not really. No, she wasn't laying down like that, almost. And as you see in that picture, yeah. Yeah.
Going back to that image again, Mr. Pickett, what's in your mom's left hand there? And maybe I can get a little better image for you here. Let's try image 428 from exhibit number 2.
If you went back in the old picture, that's what I was going to say is in that picture, you could see the knife up above her right hand where it fell out. I just wasn't sure if that was the knife or not. But in her left hand there, that is the necklace that was around her neck.
That was the necklace around her neck. How did it end up in her left hand?
I don't know. Maybe she grabbed it off her neck. I don't know. That'd be the only logical way to me.
You didn't put it there?
No.
All right, so he's telling his story here on cross-examination. Again, the whole point here of cross-examination would be to get him locked in to certain things, but he's not locking himself in. Anything that he can't quite explain, he's saying he doesn't remember or doesn't know. All right, we'll continue with this cross-examination when we come back, so keep it right here on Court TV. Hello, and welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. We are bringing you a case out of Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin versus Sean Pickett. And Pickett is charged with the murder of his mother and the family dog, Chico. Now, he took the stand today. The state put on a case, about a day and a half of testimony. The defense went, very first witness they put on the stand, the defendant himself. He told his story on direct. He is now on cross-examination, and the prosecution is at the point where they're taking him through the actual incident with the mom and, of course, the dog. So let's get back into the court.
She had that in her hand the entire time she was wrestling with you?
No.
So how did she get it in her hand after you hit her two or three more times with the metal bar?
As I was out of the room, maybe she was still conscious and still moving as I was on the phone with the cops. And maybe she grabbed it as she was laying there.
Let's talk about that phone call that you made. So you think maybe your mom was still conscious at that point?
Possibly.
And you remember calling 911?
Yes, I do.
You remember what you told the dispatcher?
Told him, so I told you I was out in the woods. I came back, and I told him I was out in the woods for a few days. My mom and Chico are dead.
Did you mention anything to them about Mr. Wheeler?
No, why would I?
I'm just going to play the 911 call. And before I do that, to mark a copy of a transcript prepared of that call.
Court will receive the transcript of Exhibit 18 based on previous discussions.
just going to hit play on that.
Did you want this to follow along or don't need it? It's up to you.
I can hear you.
Okay, I'll start over. Sorry.
I can hear you.
I just came home after a few days. And my mom and Chico was dead.
And your what?
My mom and Chico was dead.
Who's Chico?
My dog.
Okay, where's it? What's the address?
206 William Street.
206 what?
206 William Street.
And where?
Boulder, Wisconsin.
Okay. How old is your mama? What's your name?
My name is Sean. Sean Pickett.
Okay. Get on the phone with me, Sean, okay?
I think they're going to wait for Curtis Wheeler to
William Street. Sean just called and stated that his mother and the dog are both deceased. 10:25.
How long they wait for this? How long they did it? I know how long they wait for this.
What did he do?
He had to, sorry. He had to get warm. There's no one else who would kill him.
Okay.
She was on the phone with him the other day and he was really back. And he was so mad.
Take that. Okay.
He was so mad. What's wrong with him?
Okay.
What's wrong with him?
What's your phone number, Sean? I called Sheriff. I would. 55